Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of This Woman Can as we continue my series of interviews with women in the STEAM sector. Now, my guest this week, I've always been very intrigued when I saw her profile in LinkedIn. So I'm going to give you a bit of her bio, but let her talk about what she does. So Dr. Valma Jessamy is a native of the island of Grenada, where she lives and works as the resident scientist of the award-winning Grenville Vale Tropical Botanic Garden, which she owns, as has been developing since 2008. In 2009, a swarm of honeybees made their home in the garden, and since then she's developed a proprietary planting scheme of over 135 species of medicinal plants native to the Caribbean, creating a sanctuary for the honeybees. Dr. Jessamy developed a proprietary, I'm struggling with that word, medical grade honey, which has the highest bioactivity against antibiotic drug resistant bacteria when compared to other honeys available on the global market. At present, she is the CEO and principal research scientist of the 17th/21st Century Cures Limited, and develops medicinal devices for wound healing using the medical honey and medicinal plants from her conservation farm, Jessamine Eden Wellness Farms, with patents pending. She is the recipient of several awards for the best honey in the world, and is also the executive director and founder of JECO Caribbean Inc., the first environmental management and development consulting firm in the Eastern Caribbean. And for over 25 years, she has provided consulting services to the OECS Commission, Caribbean governments, development agencies, and private sector organizations. So, Dr. Jessamy, Valma, welcome to This Woman Can.
Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you for having me on your program.
Well, I'm intrigued because we said off air that, one of the things I wanted to do as a young child growing up was a scientist, which I didn't do very well at. But the other thing I'm also fascinated about, and I've just gone into this because with being at home and a little more of the homesteading piece, is the piece around bees. So, I'm looking to maybe keep my own bees. I've got my little vegetable garden and stuff like that. So I was doubly intrigued. Plus, you're a proper scientist. So, Valma, Dr. Jessamy, tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, well, I grew up in the countryside. I'm a country girl. I remember when I went to school in the city for high school, I was called a country bookie.
Oh,
a country bookie because my accent was different. You would string words differently. You would say, for instance, Mango Julie. And the girls in the city said Julie Mango.
Right,
so
right.
Mango Julie, they would be like, Mango Julie, and they would laugh at me. And they'd be like, oh, you mean Julie Mango? So I was in love with nature from a very, very young age. We grew up very tied to the land because we owned, my grandparents and my parents did farming, and they were great farmers, owned lots of land, and we also live very close to the seaside.
Right.
My dad had a boat; he built it himself.
Okay.
So we would eat our own food. We would eat fish from the sea. We had chickens, and so you just grew up doing stuff with the earth, with growing your own food out on the seashore. And so I fell in love with nature and everything about it because it was the way we lived. And there was always this scientific curiosity. I remembered we would take different animals, it sounds kind of and we would actually dissect it open, and get to see all the organs. And one of my older siblings was doing biology and chemistry in school at the time, and so she come home and show off all the techniques how to dissect a rat. So we caught a rat and we dissected it open. And we did it with lizards, and we were not thinking cruelty. We were just thinking scientific
And curiosity.
Curiosity, we did it to a frog, and she showed us how to pin it down, and we saw the heart working and everything working, you know. So there was always this scientific curiosity. The other thing for me, I was quite ill as a child.
Right.
So when everyone was outside playing, I am on the indoor looking out, you know, and so I grew up hearing a lot of, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. Val, you've got to stay inside. Val, you're not. And there was some misdiagnosis. I had a lot of problems with my respiratory system and allergies and what have you. And the cures from the village women and my grandmother, Grandma Annie Gloucester, is what really kept me alive today. Wow. Because they got into the herbs and all of the healing techniques they knew and made me all these herbal treatments, and that's what really kept me alive, honestly. So from a very young age, I knew a lot of the different herbs, and so they nicknamed me Doctor. I had my own little sketch. I learned how to take care of myself. Every illness that passed, I got it. So I had the measles and the this and boils and sores, and I started learning how to heal myself.
Right.
Using a lot of the herbs. There's an old lady in the village, Miss Benodine, who would give me stuff. My grandma would give me stuff. And my dad, he learned a lot of the healing techniques and tradition, all the different herbs from his mom, who learned from generations before. So that remained alive with me.
Yeah.
So it was just a natural, very natural thing for me to be in biology and geography and all of the sciences in school, which is what I pursued. Then you went on to A levels, and that's what I did for A levels. It was biology and chemistry and geography, and you went to university and it was biology. So I did my first degree in marine science and biology with a minor in chemistry. I was a chemistry teacher for 2 years, taught high school, and then I went on to do my, so there was this choice period.
Right.
And my mom was like, how are you doing this? Because, you know, I was the sick one. And over time, I just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And because I was always fighting back this idea that you can't do this now, you can't do that, you have to stay inside, oh, you're gonna get hurt. And so everybody at home, I think right now, is just shocked at how strong and brave I've become. So the idea that I cannot do something was just foreign to me from then, because you always just kind of fought back. And being on the indoor got me into reading. So I was this, really voracious reader. I read everything I could find. I remember at the age of 13 reading The Wealth of Nations. And, from Adam Smith and stuff that my dad did a lot of reading. He's one of those persons who you would say was living within while doing without. He had a lot of big ambition for himself and how it is in the islands, and he had the opportunity to go away to study, but fatherhood came early, and so there was all this delayed and deferred dreams that sort of inspired all of us to pursue a path along education. My mom, same thing, early motherhood at the age of 22, and she had all these big dreams. And both of my parents sort of were my inspiration in terms of going down this path of entrepreneurship, because my mom, she was trained as a stenographer from Pittsman's College in London. So she did, and she started her own school. So he was at home with us, and part of the house was dedicated to the school. So people will come home.
Right.
So she worked from home. So this whole idea of working from home, I saw my mom do it all of my life. I actually worked out of home. So we had what was called the classroom.
Right.
And it was her room with like benches that my dad built because he was a good carpenter. And there were like on this one had 5 typewriters, and the next side had another 5 typewriters. And she would have 10 women sitting in the classroom, and you hearing all the noise just clicking away. And she's and so all of us learned to type and I've got maybe about 5 certificates from Pittman's College in typing, right? And so this whole idea that you can work from home and earn money was instilled in me from a very young age. My dad started his own business at the age of, I think, 50 and did very well at it. So when I graduated from engineering school with my master's degree, I thought I'll go back to the Caribbean in Florida, and start my own consulting firm. And I remember just being so excited about starting my own consulting firm, and my dad was like, "Excuse me, get a job." Right? The thought was just kind of like, "So I spent all this money for you to go to school, and you're telling me, well, go and find a good job," because they did not see how I could earn a good income then as an environmental scientist 25 odd years ago. Climate, I was the champion for global warming on campus. I did a lot of stuff with Cool It. We had a Cool It program with the World Wildlife Fund. I was the campus coordinator, Cool It coordinator, but nobody in the Caribbean was talking about Cool It and global warming at the time. Now it's climate change. And so I came home and I started my own business, and they were like, huh. Everybody just kind of dismissed me. And so I started my consulting firm, JECO Caribbean, which means Jessamy Environmental Consulting.
Okay.
From my bedroom. So in my bedroom, with a typewriter. Of course, this time it's an electronic typewriter that could, correct. You could type in a paragraph and then press enter and it would type it out. And I felt really cool. There was no internet and all of the emailing stuff. So I had a fax machine. And that's how I got started.
Okay.
I moved out of the bedroom to the living room.
Yes, you started, progressing, progress.
Dining room, and I took over the dining table, so nobody could have dined on the table for about a year. So my family were very supportive in those early years. Yeah.
Now you touched on there one thing that stood out for me, where you touched about that you kept being told that you can't do something. So how has that shaped your mindset when you've gone into business or your own career, that you can't tell me I can't do something?
I don't ask for permission.
I've
learned not to ask for permission anymore. You just do it. You just do it. Whatever it is, you just do it. Excellent. I do not ask for permission, because if you ask for permission, you would be told, no, it's not the right time, or it's not for women, or you don't have what it takes, or you do not have money, or all sorts of, whatever other person's fears are. And so I stopped telling people my dreams and what I wanted to do, and just started doing it, because I recognize every little achievement you made, you realize, I can do this. I can do it. And so I stopped asking for permission.
I love that. Stopped asking for permission. I love that. So you talked about the field you went into. So you're almost bucking the trend anyway, because as you said, environmentalism wasn't really a big topic then and stuff like that. So can you share with us one of your in your work, your career, one of the biggest challenges you faced, and how you overcame that and the lessons you learned.
Well, two things. The environment engineering consulting field is male and white.
Right. Okay.
And so those were two of the things. Black male, and if it's not a black male, it's white.
Right.
So as a woman, I found that it was always necessary to let people know what I know, and to show that that you are as knowledgeable, or even more so, that you're on point. And so it meant delivering the best work, doing your best work. I remember there were some things along the way which were very encouraging. We lived very close to the sea, and there's this mangrove ecosystem where dumping took place. You wouldn't call it a landfill. It wasn't a sanitary landfill, it was a dump. And so all of the waste from the country was put into this wetland. And I started studying the system. My first sort of knowing that what I was doing was important was when the Foundation for Field Research, based in California, they've gone through some transition, but FFF funded my summer research program. And I was in college doing my undergraduate degree at the time. And there were several volunteers from the UK and the US who came and spent the summer with me to study the landfill and to look at the impact on the mangroves and the wetland system and on the marine coastal area. And I wrote up my results. It was published in their magazine, and I submitted, I can't remember who asked me to do it, but I submitted a summary of my work to this national award competition with the USA Today. They did this All-American College Award, Academic Excellence Award. And I got an honorable mention, and it was a big thing for the university. And I had this wall of honor, for like a month. I was up that, hey, somebody from the University of Tampa is named, in this national program. And so that made me, that first big award sort of spurred me on to have confidence. It really gave me confidence, yes. Mm-hmm.
So for women in sort of embarking in roles that are male-dominated fields, what advice would you share? Because we don't all have the chance to go for awards and things like that, because we may be doing different types of environments, but it's still male-dominated. So what advice would you share with the women who find themselves in those fields to help them to stand out and navigate that environment?
Well, first of all, you need to invest time in knowing your stuff, in really nailing it.
Yes.
You got to nail it. The second thing, you should not, apologize for being a woman. I have learned not to be apologetic. We tend to use the word sorry and don't ever be apologetic. And even if it's male dominated, it shouldn't mean that you should lose your femininity, your womanness.
Yes. Yeah.
And try to be like the boys and that kind of stuff. At the same time, you should not try to exploit being female.
Yes.
And allow people to see you just as a female object, as a sex object.
Yeah.
I remember very early having to deal with, I was in a business meeting with this executive, And then when the meeting was finished and I'm leaving, he tried to hold on to me and kiss me. And I'm like,
wow. Yeah,
whoa.
yeah.
You know? And he was, because there was this really good rapport that had started.
Yeah.
And so right away, he recognized that you can't do it with this one.
Yeah.
Right? And I did not think about sexual harassment and all of that, because in the Caribbean, nobody's,
Yeah.
But this really trust and respect relationship built, because I did not report him. I didn't report it. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He was quick to apologize, because I did not allow myself to be compromised that way. And we became really good friends. The person was very supportive and very respectful.
Right.
And so very often in our male-dominated society, you have to be very careful with men using their power and influence as you try to gain access.
Yeah.
Whether it's for contracts, whether it's for financing, whether it's just to be heard for meetings, right. Whatever. You have to use your femininity, but still be strong and forceful about and do not allow yourself to get compromised. So that I find to be a huge challenge for our young women, because it's not something we talk about. You hear about the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
That swept the world, but not the Caribbean.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's true. And it's about maintaining your authenticity, because like you say, you don't want the fact is you're a woman, and that's authentically you. You don't want to lose that, but neither, like you say, you want to have it exploited, or be to a level. Did I say level of femininity? It's almost demeaning what you do, because it's ignoring the fact that you have this knowledge, that you have it up here. You know what to do. To get, and it's a very fine. It's a fine line. But what I hear you say, Valma, is it's all about creating boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
And about confidence.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I developed something that I call my confidence box.
Okay, so share. We want to hear about the confidence box.
Actually, I have this box. And in my confidence box, I have a few books that are key. I have a few things that I've built, and I came up with this little system, and this has really taken me through some difficult periods, some low periods, and I recall writing everything I do every single day. So I have diaries that are more than 30 years old.
Wow.
And I can go back and pick up, whether it's 1995 when I started JECO, or 2000, or and look at what was happening then, what my thoughts and reflections were, how I've grown,
right,
what are the things that I planned to do, and how did I get to accomplish it. So some of the books that have helped me, a lot of the Stephen Covey books have been very useful. He's got the 7 habits of highly successful. You've got the 8th habit.
Right.
So it's 7 habits of highly effective people. And then there's the 8th habit.
Right.
I have used some of the work of Chopra, Deepak Chopra. The seven the laws of success, right? Those I found very, very useful. There are certain verses and passages out of the Bible. So I've read spiritual. what I brought into my confidence box actually came out of something that was given to me by a Hare Krishna person. Right. On campus one day, they were there singing Hare Krishna.
Yeah, with the little tambourines and things. Yeah.
And they gave me a book. I was just walking one of those days. I'm always lost walking with my head, and a bag on my back full of books. And they handed me the book, and I reached out and I just took it, and without thought. And sometime later, when I really looked at it, it was entitled The Science of Self-Realization.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, I didn't know I have this. And it speaks about the attachments, the 5 attachments that bind us and prevent us from achieving the fullness of self.
Okay.
And that was really a big, illumination for me.
Right.
And so that has gone into the confidence box. I became overweight, and because lifestyle change and all sorts of things. And so I use my confidence box to help me shed the weight.
Right.
And so I documented what I ate. Yeah. I had a digital camera that used cassette tape.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I took photos of myself. And I have this whole photo file, loving myself with the weight and working to lose it.
Yeah.
And so I have pictures of me going from, and then getting rid of all of the clothes and buying new clothes and celebrating that. And so I have a whole lot of stories.
Right.
I have flashcards that are color coded.
You kind of go real in deep into this, don't you?
So maybe that's one of the good and bad things about me. I'm very intense. When I take on something, I go deep to the theory, to the principles, and kind of to the depth of it, and I document, and so that's the very, I guess, rigid side of me.
Yeah. So and I love the fact you have a confidence box. I have something similar-ish, but not as in depth as yours. So I call it my hooray file. So I will put stuff to digital file. So I put stuff that's positive, or things that have happened, or like you said, when you need a bit of boost of confidence, and just remind yourself on the journey you've been on and things like that. It's in my file. So so confidence box, hooray file, same differences. So Dr. Valma, if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
I think a lot of things just fell in place that like it should. What I would not have done was built a house when I did.
Okay.
Because one of the things that lagged, and I recognized it quickly and started reorganizing, was my financial intelligence.
Right.
And so I started working on 4 areas of growth. And that came out of stuff that I put into my confidence box. And maybe, I can share some of the books. Maybe some of them are on my shelf that I have close by. But so I was working, I sat down and I planned out what are, the emotional self and social and spiritual self and intellectual self and the material, physical.
Right.
And I had goals that set for each one. And at the time when I was doing that, I was working on my doctoral work. I returned to Grenada after I completed my master's in environmental engineering and spent, a few years, and I started to lose steam and things were happening. And so I left to the UK to do my doctoral work. And so in kind of coming out of that and plotting is when I started to focus. And so my intellectual work was the doctoral work, and there was spiritual and social.
Yeah.
And I got this book. It's written by a Black guy, really good. He was on TV in the UK, on BBC, I think. And I was looking at it one day and I'm like, I need to get his book, you know? And so I started planning for retirement. I started, you know, fixing my financial health and all of that. And I'm like, damn, why didn't anybody advise me of this, you know? And so because I had this really nice house, which during the period between, you know, returning and leaving, that I invested in. But of course, people ask you to list your assets and you list a house. And that comes that you should never list as an asset because it's a liability.
Yeah.
It's only somebody else's asset because I had a mortgage. So it was the bank's asset.
Right. Yeah.
Not my asset. Yeah. And a lot of people know that, but the general persons who do not have, you know, enough financial intelligence do not know that. And so I'm like, oh damn, I should not have built that house. So I'm like, oh, I was prepared to lose it. So I went back to school and I put tenants in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I started making a lot of changes then. Right. And so if I had to do anything different, it would be that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I would not have built the house when I did.
Yeah, and you like the financial intelligence is something, like you say, is very much overlooked. And I think it has to start very early on, not even adult, when you're in school, you know, understand the basics of finances and how it works. So I totally take that on board. So Dr. Valma, share with us a success quote. I know you're going to have one, or a mantra that you use and why it's meaningful for you.
Well, for me, I always said failure is not an option.
Right. Okay.
I find myself saying, think like a soldier, think like a soldier. I don't know where it came from. I think it came from my dad. But lately, I have been using the words of Angela Davis.
Right.
And she says, I am no longer accepting the things that I cannot change.
Yeah.
I am changing the things that I cannot accept.
Excellent.
So that has been my new sort of,
So why that phrase?
Because I cannot accept the fact that as a woman in the Caribbean, I cannot still have a global audience.
Yes.
Someone who is as intelligent as, you know, another woman, you know, in London or New York. I have all of the skills and talents, maybe less financial resources.
Right.
But so I do not believe that, because at one point I thought it was a mistake to have returned to the Caribbean.
Right.
Because I thought maybe I would have grown much more in another place. But I look back and I say, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
It's totally not true. Yeah. We can do it right here. We can do it right here in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So I want to change that. I want to change the fact that we are using, in my view, the wrong end of the wrong part of in framing the conversation about our past.
Okay.
I think our liberation theology should be about these, you know, scientists and engineers and astronauts and astrologers, our people who have brought us through this journey. We're not just working in the fields with whips on their back.
Yeah.
Okay? They were, imagine the European colonists, he knew nothing about medicinal plants of the tropics or tropical diseases. He knew nothing about farming rice.
Yeah.
You read, there's a book that Dr. Black, Professor Black, published about the rice industry in the US and how it was all built by farmers from Africa who had the knowledge.
Right.
They did them.
Yeah.
So when persons were brought to the Caribbean, they were not brought only for physical hard work. They had medics who were brought with them. We read about the women who were medical revolutionaries. So much so that as early as 1767, it became illegal for Blacks to practice medicine because the medicine was part of our liberation.
Yes, yes.
They used it as part of the revolutionary movement. Imagine an entire plantation being made ill.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And nobody could work.
To work out what it was. Yes, yeah.
They knew the antidote. They knew what to take to get better.
Yeah.
Or the women who were using the poinciana, which is the national flower of Barbados, to abort fetus because they did not want their children to be born into the same.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to change the conversation because I am a product of that. I can do calculus and quadratic equations and differentials and I know I'm a scientist and I am no less a person because of my ancestry. Yeah. And so 21st century is born out of the idea. That's one of the companies that I'm working with, a team of scientists from around the world. One of our specialists in nanobiotechnology. He's from India. Right. And I am using the 17th century stories about our healing plants. Yeah. So I learned through oral tradition from my grandparents and the people in our village. But I'm using that 17th century materia medica for our 21st century cures. Right. And so we've actually used the stories. They're not written in our language. Yeah. The next thing was appropriated by the Europeans. And now I have books such as this one. It's a manual of all the healing cures, but it's not written in English. This one is in French. And at the back, there is a dictionary of all the Creole words. Right. So you can translate from our Caribbean, translate what it meant into French. Yeah. And so all of our these healing traditions were developed by our ancestors. Yes. And so we are using this. A lot of it, the science has been validated. Yeah. That's the exciting part about this. Yeah. They would use a plant for a tummy ache or whatever, and all of the science has now been worked out on the plant, which validates the traditional use. Yeah. So we are using, and the garden has all of these medicinal plants growing here. And so we are using it to do our cures. Excellent. Excellent. Now, one of the things you said in your mantra, that you used to say that failure is not an option. But where has failure played a success in your career, in your life? Well, I had a very traumatic experience that I am still working out of. You know all about the global financial crisis of 2008. Yes. I wouldn't say it directly affected me. What happened was that, well, I shouldn't say it didn't, it did, but something else happened. Somewhere in my financial planning, getting started, I decided to leverage my expertise as an environmental scientist into developing a business that will generate products and revenue and whatnot. Because with consulting work, although I've been very successful at it, you have no control over the job.
The work, yes.
You work, and you have to sometimes bids, and you may win a bid, you don't win a bid. You have no control over how much money you would make. Right? And so I started thinking, how can I reinvest that income into something that leveraged the knowledge I already have?
Right.
Not starting a beauty shop or something else where I don't have the skills. And so, of course, it led me back to my roots with farming and all of that. So I started to develop the farm. And the banks, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. It actually does. So I was given this promise. I came up with a rough budget that I would need $2 million to do one of the things I wanted to do. And I needed the money in phases. So I asked for 3.5 million for phase 1 and this and that and the other. But anyway, so I got a promise that I will get financing from an institution. And they gave me an unsecured loan, like an overdraft facility. And we'll get started and we'll work out all the details. And there I am. I mean, you want to build a rocket to the moon and somebody says, start to build. Aren't you going to start a build? Aren't you going to start?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So I was just so full of excitement. And so I started building and this idea of this agro ecotourism.
Yeah.
So I was told to go ahead and, we would work out the details. I gave them my financial reports from, what I did before with my other business, with the consulting business, and my business plans and strategies and cash flow projections and how I would make this new venture work.
Yeah.
And I advertised all over the world. I went to the London, every year there's the London market, the London tourism.
Yes.
And there's this Florida Cruise Association big conference. And I went to all of these places and advertised, and I'm starting this huge new ecotourism venture, and and it's going to be so great. And I'm even written up in the magazine saying new thing coming, so, and after I signed over all of my land documents to the institution, because I did not have an institution involved in the financing of the land. After I signed over the documents to them, they cut the funding. They were like, we're not going to fund you anymore. We want our money back. I'm like, well, excuse me.
Yeah.
At the same time, a lot of the big hotel projects and different schemes that I was doing consulting work for, that's with my consulting business now, they all, just went to a halt. We're talking about post Lehman Brothers.
Yes.
So that's 2008 and into 2009. So I just had this little nightmare of a dream to see all of my property listed for sale. And so in a small community, that's very hard.
Yeah.
And I am not the person to now go and explain. There was no explaining. I mean, right? So all of the lands is for sale, the house is for sale, everything is for sale. And one day I'm sitting, in the garden that I started with with my employees, and a bailiff and a policeman came and said, "Oh, the bank is to take your vehicle from you."
Oh, gosh.
And so they stripped everything out of the vehicle, all of my tools and equipment that were in there. I had a sticky decal, one of those metal sticky decal for my company logo and everything. So they pulled it all out. I mean, they were so dramatic.
Yeah.
In stripping everything, off. And I'm like, but couldn't this have been done another way? But the thing is, I was only like 2 days late with my payments. It's so that's why I said it sounds like this conspiracy theory sometimes when you talk about what has really happened. And so there was this portrayal that I reached too high.
Right.
And I failed. And so a lot of the public voice was quieted, because you now have to be dealing with, you're up for sale, girl, everything you have. I was speaking to someone who works with the European Development Fund, and I had many projects. I did a land and marine management strategy for Grenada. I did projects for OECS and the region that was funded by the European Development Fund. And one of the officers, the local representative for EU, we were speaking on the phone one day, and she said, "Valma, somebody called me over the weekend," and I was just so disturbed. She said, "You lost everything," And I'm like, oh, we'll see, and I just kept going. My faith, my confidence in me got even stronger.
Right.
Got even stronger.
That's good.
I had that that valley experience, where you deep in the valley. And over the last 12 years, my roots have gone even deeper, deep down, reaching to the water table. and I'm planted real strong. If you look at a big tree, it has huge roots. What I've seen on top is even bigger below. And that massive root system, that foundation, I've really had to go very deep to not lose hope, to not lose the vision, to fail, to seem to have failed publicly.
Right. Yeah.
It's okay when we have private. Private.
Yeah, but putting it all out there, make it so visible and so public. It's public's perception you're then dealing with.
And one of the worst parts of it, there was this perception created that I'm bankrupt.
Right.
So one of the banks returned all of my checks. I wrote like 15 checks to do different things, and all of the checks were returned. That was very humiliating. And I remember taking someone to the bank with me and asked them to show them, come, show them the screen, show them my account. Yeah. There's money in there. I did not write you a bad check. I've got money in the account. And they refused to issue a letter of apology.
Wow.
And so years later, that happened in 2011, I believe. A few years later, my attorney said, we should file a case against the bank for defamation.
Yeah.
And it took several years. Right. I think we filed in 2014. And during the pandemic last year, I got a check for almost $200,000 because from a court order, the court ordered that, and so it's not the financial part of it, because months later, I went to do a transaction and someone refused to take a check from me.
Yes, it's the,
yes. You know, he said, oh, I'm not, he says, Valma Jessamy, you're not the lady in the newspaper with that thing with the check. Oh, no, I don't want, no. Go and find me cash. I don't. So that, during that time, I did not lose faith in me. My confidence box that I had developed, you know, from during, you know, that period really kept me. And all of, you know, my ancestors and everybody really carried me. So now all of the legal battles are now over. And I put that in its own box because it's not about the court victory. It's about, you know, standing up for one of the things that I believe that needs to change, because we have really abusive colonial institutional norms that are alive in the Caribbean, in Grenada, where we are making decisions based on class and social status and what have you, and determining who should succeed.
Right.
Pass through the gates. Who can move up, if you want to use the word, out of what station into another. There are gatekeepers who are holding fast and trying to decide. And I have dealt with that gatekeeping, not only dealing with financial institutions, but dealing with some of the regional institutions like CARICOM and what have you. You have to be careful how you speak about it, because you still want to be employed.
Yes, of course.
I have had many projects. I've walked away from many projects. No, I do less walking away. I stand up and fight, but I've walked away and left a lot of money on the table with engagements with regional agencies, with governments, not so much with private sector agencies. And so I continue to remain firm. I may be perceived as difficult, and difficult is good, because it's difficult because you are requiring the best. I'm not a perfectionist, but I want, you know, to know that I strive for excellence. I have the capacity to do it. My grandma always talked about savoir-faire. It's about knowing how to do things, how to live, and they used the patois, so it was all about savoir-faire and savoir-vivre and bini bini ukaiwe, and they spoke, you know, the broken French, and I learned quite a lot of it. And she did not have, they were not very rich, but they were not, you know, they were not without, but it was about just how you carry yourself, how you live, how you know, just this feeling of this is my world. So I hope that and I don't call myself successful. I find success is such a finite word. More about progress.
Okay.
I think about progress and because if I think I'm successful, then I'll stop.
Right. Yes.
Because like you've reached whatever. And so there are a lot of things that I still would like to do and change, and so I think of you know, the progress of the path, the journey. And I hope that through what I have been able to achieve,
yes,
that I can now inspire others to say, I can do it too.
yeah.
And I know there are young people who said to me, I see you do this and I know I can do it too. I want to do this or I want to do that. And so I think, you know, in that small way, I may have been contributing
and make a difference.
Yes, the people feeling that they can do it.
Definitely. Now we're coming down to our last couple of questions, Dr. Valma. So my next question is, what are the 3 things have you learned about yourself during your career?
I am a very shy person. Okay. I'm an introvert. I prefer to be silent and to let, you know, my actions speak for itself.
Okay, so that's one.
Yes. So yeah. But I also learned that I have deep empathy and care for others. But I protect myself from others because I recognize that that could be easily abused.
Right.
And so another person might say that I am selfish or mean.
Right.
But I have seen that when you reach out sometimes to help others, they take too much from you.
Right. Okay.
And so in giving, I prefer not to let others know that I am the one doing the giving.
Okay.
So so then you get to protect,
right,
you know, or else you give too much.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I've had to kind of check myself in relations, especially with people who you feel a certain way about or who are close to you.
Yeah.
I've learned that, you know, yes, you care, but I've had to learn that you have to start protecting yourself.
Yeah, and that goes back to your boundaries again.
Yes.
Get back to your boundaries again.
Even as a child, I remember having my comb for my hair and my medical bag with my Vicks and chest rub, and this was mine, you know. And here's one, but you can't have all.
Yeah.
And what would I say is the third thing? I would say that I am my biggest critique. I'm hardest on me. Okay. I do not find that I get sufficient feedback.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I probably crave. And maybe it's just a human thing. It's not about wanting to be recognized, which is a different thing.
Yeah.
But in getting constructive feedback.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I set my own bar a lot of the times. Right. And so there could be a little bit of a, what's the right word? Without being cruel to me. So and I'm not a perfectionist, although people would say that. I recognize the things that I can do well and should do well.
Right.
And I also recognize that there are certain things that you can only strive for your best and leave it at that. And when you can't get the best, then you eliminate that activity rather than keep beating on yourself. So I had to learn that. Okay. Yes.
Fabulous, fabulous. That was my last official question, so I can take you out of the hot seat. But if persons want to know more about what you're doing, Dr. Valma, how can they connect with you, or where can they find out more information about what you do?
So the best way to reach me is to email Valma Jessamy at JECOCaribbean.com.
Okay.
Or a telephone call will do.
Right. Can they connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yes, LinkedIn, sure.
Okay. Yes. That's fine. That's fine. I'll put those connections in the show notes so you can get in touch. Can we get in touch with you? So that was the end of our interview, Dr. Valma Jessamy. Thank you so much for being my guest today. It was an absolute delight, and learning more about what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I welcome the invite, although I was a little hesitant to speak, and I shared it with one of my friends, and she's like, "Go ahead, do it. You need to do this," you know. So thank you so much, and I really admire what you're doing, because I think it's very important for the strong women of the Caribbean to have this opportunity to speak out. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.